Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving straight into a really fascinating explainer based on a major field research report. It's called The Analysis of Coral Reef Coverage Condition in the Waters of Central Bangka Regency. Now, as an environmental researcher, coastal ecosystems are pretty much my bread and butter, so I am absolutely thrilled to break this data down for you. We're going to get a first-hand look at what's really happening beneath the surface in Central Bangka, and trust me, some of these findings are going to surprise you. We've got a lot of ground, or well, ocean floor, to cover today. We'll be mapping out the Central Bangka ecosystem, comparing coral coverage across different stations, and looking at the sheer diversity of the coral genera down there. We're also going to tackle a massive anomaly involving populated versus unpopulated islands, look at the very real threat of algae, and finally connect the dots on why saving these corals is a literal lifeline for local fishermen. All right, let's jump right into the first leg of our expedition. Picture this. It's May 2022. Researchers head out to sample data from 8 different research stations. These stations are spread out across 6 small islands in the Central Bangka Regency waters, stretching all the way from Panjang Island over to Semujur and out to Ketawai Island. So what exactly is going on under the waves there? Well, in these waters, corals are growing as fringing reefs, and they form these really vital patch reefs around the islands, usually sitting at depths of about 3 to 8.8 meters. And the crucial takeaway here is that these aren't just, pretty underwater landscapes for scuba divers. These ecosystems are the absolute foundation of the area. They act as essential nursery grounds for targeted fish species, which literally props up the entire local fishing economy. Okay, so let's get into the hard data and see just how healthy these coastal ecosystems actually are right now. It's literally a mixed bag. Coral health across these stations varies wildly, ranging from what we'd classify as moderate all the way up to excellent. For instance, at Ketugar Island, the live coral coverage is sitting at 44.62%. That puts it squarely in the moderate category. But then we see a solid improvement at Gusung, Asam, which is up to 59.53%, and the absolute peak, that's at Ketawai Island, which boasts an incredible 87% live coral coverage. That is just fantastic. But here's the really cool part. These ecosystems are highly dynamic, and the timeline shows us a super hopeful message about nature's ability to bounce back. If we look back at the data from 2013, overall coral coverage was only hovering between 40 and 67%. Fast forward 9 years to 2022, and boom, we see a really sharp upward trend. The overall quality has jumped to between 44 and 87%. Now let's zoom in a bit closer and look at the actual biological architecture that's building the seafloor of Bangka. The scientists on this expedition didn't just count the corals, they went in and identified them. And it's like a bustling underwater city. Out of 32 total coral genera found across the 8 stations, they noticed that 5 specific heavy hitters completely dominate the landscape. We're talking about Galaxea, Goniastria, Myrolina, Pectinia, and Porites. And if we look at the actual growth forms of these corals, coral folios is the reigning champ. Why? Well, it's incredibly resilient. It easily adapts to waters that have high levels of turbidity, basically cloudy water. But there's a catch. This data also introduces us to a looming threat, DCA. That stands for dead coral with algae. Which brings us to, honestly, the most paradoxical, surprising finding of the entire research report. You'd probably think human presence automatically equals dead reefs, right? Common logic says that where there are humans, the environment degrades. Well, actually, scratch that. Semujur Island is the only permanently populated island in this research area, and it actually boasts excellent coral coverage at a massive 80.53%. On the flip side, Ketugar Island, which is entirely unpopulated, is languishing down in the moderate category at just 44.60%. So what on earth is going on here? Why are the unpopulated transit islands taking significantly more catastrophic damage than the islands where people actually live year-round? Let's unpack that and look at the specific mechanisms driving this destruction. It all comes down to how we use these spaces. Unpopulated islands are frequently used as careless, temporary transit stops, and that activity literally smashes the fragile coral structures to pieces. We're talking about the use of unsustainable fishing gear, heavy marine tourism traffic, busy shipping lines, and worst of all, the incredibly destructive habit of boats just carelessly dropping their anchors right on top of the coral reefs. To put a number on that devastation, 46.87. That is the highly alarming percentage of dead coral with algae found at Ketugar Island, and it is purely a result of these physical, human-caused disturbances. It's basically a tragic domino effect. First, human activities disrupt and scar the seabed. This kills the coral, which then triggers step 2. Algae aggressively expands and takes over the dead skeleton. Step 3 introduces total suspended solids, or TSS, which is just a fancy scientific term for dirt and churned up sediment. That sediment completely suffocates whatever living coral polyps are left. And ultimately, in step 4, the fish lose their shelter and are forced to flee the nursery altogether. So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? How does this tie back into the community? Here's the bottom line, and it's absolutely crucial. The preservation of the coral ecosystem is the exact same thing as the preservation of the local fisherman's livelihood. It's a scientific verdict. Without healthy reefs acting as natural nursery grounds, the targeted, high economic value fish populations will simply vanish. In Bangka, marine ecology and the marine economy, they are completely 100% inseparable. To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. The health of our reefs is a direct reflection of our actions. To protect our fishermen's future, we must commit to conscious coastal preservation today. The question we have to ask ourselves now is, will we let the algae slowly choke out our oceans, or will we step up to protect the heartbeat of Bangka's coast? Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.